So thanks everyone for coming to this talk with Katherine Schirrmacher. We're really pleased you're here, and again, lovely to see everyone's faces. Just want to say a massive thank you to Adidas for everything they do to help us put these talks on, and 510 as well, sorry. And yeah, it's been a really busy month for us putting all these talks on, so thanks for coming along to this one. Tonight we've got Katherine here again. Catherine's not on my screen. I wonder where she's gone.
You're right next to me. I can see you.
I can see you now. So Catherine's a mountain and climbing instructor, but she's also got development coach qualifications. So she's got a massive breadth of knowledge and experience in coaching climbers. So that those qualifications allow her to work with people out on the crags, doing trad climbing, but also, in the climbing wall and pull-ups and all sorts of things that you do in climbing walls. So it's a huge breadth of experience that she's got. So we're really pleased to have her on board for this Women's Climbing Symposium online series that we've been putting together. So tonight's talk is the last talk of 3 talks that Katherine has put on for us. The first 2 were focused on using lots of questions and a matrix of questions to help you to really analyze what you have as strengths within your climbing and what you have as weaknesses within your climbing. And tonight's session is about goal setting and planning. So it's about how we use that information for the better and for the good. Tonight's format, if you've been to the other ones, is very different. So we've been using the webinar format up until now, but we wanted to make it really real tonight. So that's why we've got all your faces on screen. We are going to look at how you're going to use all that information that you've gathered from the last 2 sessions, and to make it even more real and to make it hopefully very much relevant to you and hopefully everyone on this talk, is that we've got 3 participants who are in the room tonight who are going to have their answers looked at, and they're going to be talked through goal setting and planning for the answers that they got from the questions in the previous 2 talks. So it's a bit different. Rebecca is our DJ tonight, so she's going to let us know when someone needs to unmute or turn their camera on, etc. If you could, we're going to use the chat tonight a little bit differently, and there isn't a Q&A box. So if you've got any questions, we're going to wait until the Q&A at the end of the talk. And if you open up the participant box, you will see a raise your hand button. So if you have a question, if you could raise your hand in that way, and then we'll do the Q&A like that. So you'll actually say your question, which is quite nice, rather than type it in a box. If you are uncomfortable doing that, then please type a question into the chat. That's totally fine, but we might not get to it tonight if we're looking at both. And if we don't get to it, we will save the chat and we will answer your question after the talk, if that's okay. We anticipate quite a lot of questions, so there might come a point where we have to say just one more, we can only do one more. So anyway, I'll shut up and we can get on with it, and then we'll have more time at the end. So without further ado, Katherine, thank you so much. Over to you.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, it's really great to see everybody's faces. As Emma has said, this session is about using the information that you've got and trying to set goals and plan. So actually, it's quite ambitious to really get a full plan. And it's tricky to know how to put this together, but what I have done, and it's been brilliant, is many of you sent me because in the last session that I did, many of you sent in your questions because there was a questionnaire you could send in. So a lot of this is based around your actual questions. So there were 3 things that came up in all the people that emailed me. So one was how to set goals. The second one was how to prioritize. So a lot of you have figured out brilliantly where you're at and have got all this information, but how do you know what to work on first? So I'm going to definitely, those 2 are the big 2 that I'm going to look at. But there was another one that was pretty dominant, was how to, for many of you, you figured out that psychological was the area that you need to work on. And that's brilliant. It's always good when you can figure out something concrete. It's like, right, that's staring me in the face. I need to sort that out. But how to goal set for psychological. Now, we're not going to have a lot of time, because that in a way needs its whole workshop on its own. However, the act of goal setting is extremely psychological. It's a very psychological process. So in doing that, I'm going to be asking you more questions. Is that you can then, it might help you further figure out your priorities, or it might just go, okay, yeah, that confirms that. How do I move on to the next stage? So that's what I've got. And what I'm going to do then is, as Emma's summarized there, I'm going to start off. I want to ask you a question because I want you to connect to your why. Why do you do it? So that's the first thing. So we're going to look into that. Then I'm going to do a little bit on goal setting in general. And then we've got 2 people, Amy and Marlies, who have sent in their questions, and they've got slightly different questions about goal setting. And then we'll look at prioritizing and planning, and Leela's on here as well about how we can actually figure out once you've got this information. So that's the plan. So let's just get started. So I'm just going to share this screen. Actually, before I do that, just if any of you have watched Rebecca Williams's talk, if you can just wave and say, the people on my screen, did any of you see Rebecca's talk? Her talk was about the inner critic, the voices, the niggling voices. Well, from my point of view, whether it's that or whatever it is, when it comes down to it, that moment where you're on your climb and you need to dig deep, you need to make a decision, you need to go, you need to really dig deep and use your technique and your physical ability and all that to the best. Or whether you've been training for months and you've been trying your route or your boulder problem, or you're going on holiday, whatever it is, you need to figure out your why. So I'm always one for trying to use the information that we have around us at the moment, or we don't have. Like, what can we use now to actually tell us? Because we can't go climbing, but this is a huge source of inspiration, quite possibly. It might be miserable, but there's something in there that we can use. So I want to go into that. So, maybe you can look back on Rebecca's notes as to how she used that point, but I'm going to use that again now. So I've just got this this screen share here. Right, let's get that onto that. So, goal setting and planning. So this is the big question that I want to ask you. So, I mean, what is your why? Why do you climb? What is it that you love about climbing? Is it, if this is from a goal setting perspective, connecting to this, is it being in nature? Is it being with friends? Is it moving on rock? Is it the feeling of certain handholds and under your fingers? Is it the feeling of moving your body? Is it travel? What is it? So I'm going to ask you a question now. What do you miss about climbing? So this is your question. Often when we're denied something, it tells us what we actually want. So I want to use that now. And what I'd like to do is to have a very quick breakout room. So this is, I'm just thinking now, 3 minutes. We're going to have groups of 5 people in 3 minutes just to ask each other, and I'll be joining one of them. What do you, let's just see that. What do you miss about climbing? Fantastic. Yeah, put in the chat, what do you miss about climbing? Because the point of this is, what I want to say is that we can use this information to set goals. So we can, you know, does it make you want to boulder more? Does it make you want to sport climb more? Does it actually say, do you know what, I really love indoor climbing, and actually that is what I'm just missing my local climbing wall. So I would say that thing that you're missing, that needs to come into your goal. So what we've got here, other people say meeting friends and getting psyched about doing hard moves. Again, I would say that in your goal is to make sure those key friends are with you. You know, that is part of your goal. I'll go on to the role of other people in goal setting, but yeah, we've got friends again. Being outside, problem solving. So that's really great. So just store this information up about what you're really missing. Now, there might be some bits about your climbing you're not missing. You know, if there's certain bits, it's like, do you know what? I've had it with trad. It stresses me out. I'm not doing it anymore. And that's fine. That is fine too. So we need to tap into that. So I'm just going to share, right, pulling really hard, yes. Freeing my mind, I know, I think for me, yeah, that place where well, I was saying to my group, for me as well, it's the feeling of rock under my fingers, the feeling of the outdoor connection and touching the rock. I mean, these hands, they've just done nothing of interest for ages. Right, okay, so screen share. So I'm going to just put something else up now. So the thing about goal setting here as well is just thinking about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this, but these are 2 different types of motivation. And intrinsic is when you find your internal driver. So that thing that gives you peace, you enjoy being with your friends, you just really enjoy those certain moves. You enjoy pulling hard. Those are the intrinsic motivation. The extrinsic are external drivers. So that could be recognition. It could be winning a competition. But it's just that you want to win. You want to get that award. Now, it's interesting, and it also could be that extrinsic is that you do it to avoid disappointment, or you do it to avoid, not disappointment, you do it to avoid criticism, something else external. So it's interesting, I've seen stuff which says neither are bad, but from my point of view, as I said at the beginning, when you can really connect to the intrinsic, when you can connect really to you and your deep motivation, I think in that moment, if you've got to travel a long way for your climb, or if you've got to put a lot of training in, or you've really got to work on a fear of falling, it's the intrinsic that's going to be the deep motivator. So just have a think about that. So I've put together this slide here. Now, I feel that there's two different ways to look at goal setting. So on the right hand, so at the top, we've got connect to your why. And I think that sits there. Why, you know, what do you really get excited about in terms of the type of climb you want to do? Now, on the right hand of the side of the screen, we've got SMART. So SMART, you've probably heard about that: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Now that can be really useful. I was watching something recently, and Shauna Coxey was saying she uses that a lot. So that can really work for people. And again, the numbers really work for people. That's also, you know, looking at how many pull-ups you've done, how many push-ups you've done, you know, the measurable things. Or maybe you need, if you want to get to E1, you need to do a certain number of HVSs first, and you sort of build up from a numbers point of view. And these are kind of the traditional ways to goal set. And I think this is quite personal, but it isn't for everyone. And I just want to say that, because it's not that, you know, we need to make a SMART goal and let's do a whole presentation on that. I think T at the end of SMART is particularly difficult at the moment because it's time bound. And that's the bit we're struggling with at the moment, isn't it? Time. But obviously there's lots of evidence to say that when somebody books to do a flight, or books to enter a race, signs up, right, I'm going to do the London Marathon, and then you have a friend to do it with, you are more likely to reach that goal. So there is something to be said for that, but we haven't got that to work with at the moment. So that makes things really difficult. I do think on the bottom of the right hand side, we've got that bit there that says make yourself accountable. And again, it's on that sort of more traditional side. I absolutely believe that is powerful, and accountable is a bit of a tricky word, but it sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? But I think that if you're doing something with somebody, I think it is extremely powerful. I was watching the interview with Tommy Caldwell. It wasn't an interview, it was a conversation between Tommy Caldwell and Adam Ondra. I don't know if you've seen that. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm a massive fan of both of them. But Adam Ondra was talking about how if you go, Tommy Caldwell said the importance of teamwork. It took him till the dawn wall to learn that, but it just made this massive difference having Kevin Jorgensen to work with on the dawn wall. And Adam Ondra talked about, he said that technique is going to be where the big gains and leaps in climbing are going to come from. But to work on technique, you have to do it with a friend. It was just like his bottom line thing. So that's really important. But I want you to also think about the other side of the screen. And so I've got three things there. I mean, on the left hand side it says non-number based goals. Now these are equally valid, and I think that for all of you who are asking, how can I improve on my psychological, this is going to come in the non-numbers bit. So if you want to improve your decision making, or you want to be able to improve listening to your intuition, or you want to be able to become more assertive in your day, so it's like, I want to do this route and I want to go here. Or if you want to improve your confidence, these are all non-number goals. And I mean, I'm sure there's like some more special words, that sports science words for it, but let's just keep things simple. And they are absolutely valid. If anybody follows me on social media, I wrote about an experiment that I did for a whole year. And this was a psychological thing where I wanted to climb only according to my energy. So because I have a habit of overriding myself and just going for it and not really having any gear other than on or off, I wanted to find more of a subtlety. So that was my aim for a whole year, to only climb according to my energy, no training. That was my aim. So that's what I mean there. Goals for different days. So I have got a slide coming up on that. In fact, no, I'll talk through this and then I'll go to that next slide. But yes, that we all have different types of days. We've got hot days, cool days. We've got days when we've got high energy, days when we've got low energy. We've got days when we go climbing with Lucy. We've got days when we go climbing with Ruth. They're just two of my climbing partners, by the way. I've not made them up. So I'll do different things with each of them. So I'll come back to that. And then the other thing, this is really important. It says only 4% beyond your comfort zone. So I put that in because it helps with this goal setting on this other side. I don't know if you know, I've read that it's either to find flow state, it is either, well, I've read both 3 and 4% beyond your comfort zone. That's it. It's not much. It's a tiny, tiny amount. It's really interesting when you look and think, gosh, really? Because I put 4% there to make it optimistic, but I have read 3% as well. So this is really interesting. If you think about, I mean, I did work it out for trad, and then I seem to have lost the piece of paper, how many grades there are in the scale. And then you've got 100%. Well, there's more than 10 grades. But let's just say to get between grades is more than 4%. So it just shows how hard it is to push a grade. It's really difficult. It's no wonder it's hard to push a grade, because obviously when you reach nearing your limit, as you are, actually it's not 4%, it's more, isn't it? So to break a grade is always really significant. So in your goal setting, is sometimes your goals need to be really small, and that's right. To make vast goals, I'm going to sort out my fear of falling. That could be a sort of 20% process. What can you do in the little 1% that are going to help you? And that's where the non-numbers games, non-number goals will really help you. So just moving on then. So goals for different days. Right, so I've called this Make Your Playlist. Now I got inspiration here because I did an interview with Johnny Dawes. If you've heard of Johnny Dawes, he doesn't need any introduction. If you haven't, well, he was the person who did the first E8 and the first E9 in the country. And he's, in the 1980s, he absolutely pushed standards. Now, no way was he setting SMART goals. I can assure you that's not what Johnny was doing. But he had another way, and he likened it to music. So you will listen to different music on different days. So it's the same with climbing. You don't feel like listening to you may have 3 top things that you like to listen to. You don't want to listen to them all the time. And it's a bit like setting a climbing goal, these big goals. It's all about this big goal. that can't suit every single climbing day, that you're all working, all encompassing to this one thing. So we may have an overarching thing, but we've got the mini goals, and maybe this playlist that you can spread out over your climbing. So on the right hand side, sort of more simply, you know, goals, you know, you may make a whole list of climbs that you do for different days. So some dream sort of climbs that you'd like to do when you're feeling really good, but also some climbs that when you have, you know, really relaxed days that are just like, do you know what, I really want to go and do that massive scramble in Scotland, or I really want to go and do, there's this brilliant slab that I've seen at this random crag that nobody else has heard of, but you've seen it and you really like the look of it, and it'll just, you just really feel like doing it, but you can do it when you know your arms are fresh. Adventure days. An adventure doesn't have to be bushwhacking and getting up at 3 in the morning. It can also be going to a new crag. It can be maybe going to a new place altogether. Or it, you know, if you're into new routing, my friend Rachel, she's really into doing new boulder problems, and that's what she's doing. Bouldering, climbing with certain friends days. So things that you can do. You know, you may have friends that just like to pull really hard and do their, get on red points and boulder problems, or ones that like to only climb on limestone, for example. So you can bet you've got aims in all these places as well, so that if whoever says, shall we go here, it's like, cool, I know, I think I can get something out of that day. And the same goes for cold days and hot days. So really knowing your crags. I've got crags that I'll go to on cold days, which are, I know will be sheltered and catch sun, and equally when it's really hot that I can go to in the shade. So so that what I'm trying to say is that whatever your climbing day, there's something you can get out of every climbing environment. And the more experienced you are at climbing, the easier this is, because obviously for me, I know the Peak District really, really well. So for me to choose within that list is really, really easy. But if I was to go to Scotland, I wouldn't know anything. I really, really wouldn't know anything. So I'd be out of my comfort zone. And there's other places I know quite well, but not as well. So, but equally, just coming back to what we've done in the last few sessions is technique, physical, tactics. Can you, even if it isn't the crag you want to go to on that day, can you use that day to work on one of those things? So if your friend's got something and they really want to go and do this certain route, and it's kind of like, really, I don't want to do that route, but there's something at that crag that you could use, then that would work for you. Other ways you can use this. So on the left-hand side of the screen, something you've tried. So other ways to look at your year without having to set these particular, do it in a rigid way. Somebody wrote this on social media, somebody I used to climb with a long time ago, and the way they set goals every year is to do something you've tried and haven't done yet, something you'd really like to do but will require work, and your dream climb if everything goes perfectly. So really what I'm trying to say is there's many different ways to set goals, basically. There's no one way to do it. And I think it is hugely about you and your why. And what I wanted to do here is just go beyond what you might read about the SMART goals, or the, that you can go a bit broader than that. So I'm going to stop sharing this, because actually what I want to do is I want to just talk now to, so I want to start off with Amy. So how do we do this? So Amy knows who she is.
I do know who I am. You'll all be pleased to know.
Where are you? Now, how do I get to you? I can't see you, that's the thing. All I can see is my, oh, there you are. Hi, Amy.
Hey.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. So, right, we've talked generally, but now I wanted to be more specific. So I've chosen it. So the first thing is Amy. So nobody else, actually, this is the first time I've spoken to Amy. She sent me this information and I've emailed her and I said, right, can you come on the screen? So this is all sort of as it's happening. But one of the reasons that I picked you out, Amy, is there was something you did that was absolutely fantastic. So what you did is you wrote down everything about your climbing as it is. There wasn't any personal judgment on it, and you wrote it all down. And I'm not going to read it all. Is it all right if I just summarize?
It's fine if you do, yeah.
So you've been climbing about 12 years, and you trad climb, you sport climb, and you boulder. And you feel like you've gone backwards with your climbing.
Yeah.
So you have climbed 7A routes and you have done E1, but what you are really seeing gains with is your bouldering. But what's happened with the routes is
it's not happening as well.
It's not happening as well as the bouldering. So yeah, what you did is you then said, okay, so this is what's happened. You feel like it's psychological, but you've also said you now live an hour from your nearest climbing wall. You don't have a consistent belay partner. You do live 30 minutes away from Llanymynech, which is a sport climbing venue. But the walls are very intimidating. Yes, they are. I've been there. I know it. I don't know if anybody else has noticed it. It is sport climbing there, but it feels like trad climbing. They're big routes for the UK. They're long, aren't they?
Yeah, you need an 80-metre rope.
Yeah, they're really long, big routes, and the bolts are spaced. So you miss your good belay partners. And now you're feeling pressure to make the climbing wall count. So you then put in this list of questions, what goals for psychological? Should you go indoors or outdoors? How can I get a consistent belay partner? How can I work on psychological when I'm not at the climbing wall? How long will it take to become confident? And you were talking about mixing of psychological between climbing at different types.
I just wanted you to solve all my climbing problems in one.
Yeah, but what you did there, and I think anyone listening, is really good to just set it all out. Like, this is what's happening. And it's always interesting when somebody else just reads what's there. So I've got something that's jumping out at me, Amy, is see what actually, when we said the connect to the why, what did that say? When you said, what do you miss about climbing? What came up for you there?
I miss my friends and that day out with friends, which I think I struggle with at the minute, because a lot of the friends I used to climb with and I started climbing with have all progressed in sport climbing, and they kind of go to crags I can't go to anymore. So
Have you
I
moved
feel
house?
Yeah. So I used to live in Northampton and now I live in Wales. But the friends I used to climb with and I started climbing with will now climb at crags where their warm-up routes are still harder than my goal routes. So I miss that social aspect with that group of friends. But that was the big bit that I missed, was the social bit, but also that I think it's a lot, isn't it, of that piece of being outside is quite a lot, and that feeling of exhaustion, you know, when your arms are so tired after a day's climbing, when you just are like, oh, I've had a really good day, and that puzzle and the success you get when you solve it.
Yeah, yeah.
But mainly I miss bouldering.
Right. You've just said it. You've just said it. So this was the thing, is what I'm wondering, and I don't know, you can say what you think, because what it seems to me in everything you wrote is it's bouldering. That is what that's what you're climbing V5 indoors. So you're seeing huge progression. It isn't crossing over to the routes, but what would happen if you just went with bouldering?
Nothing, I guess. I've just got a load of gear that I wouldn't need.
I'm sure there's going to be people who are missing the routes and happily buy it off you.
Yeah.
But I mean, it may not come to that. It may just be the phase of where you're actually at. But I suppose is if you allowed yourself to go with bouldering, the thing that you really, really enjoy, how would that affect the psychological?
It would be a lot easier because I want to do it. There is a difference. Even from the bit that you were doing at the start, I was like, I do miss bouldering. Bouldering's what I miss. And there is that, it's a lot easier to push yourself, isn't it? Because you actually want to do it. Whereas with sport, I think it's a lot of like the extrinsic, is that how you say it? It's a lot more of that, of trying to keep up with certain people and wanting them to be proud and still see me in that group, rather than when I boulder, I just love bouldering. I just want to do it. I can go out by myself and love it. Whereas I'd never get that satisfaction from going out with someone I didn't know and doing a sport route or a trad route. I just wouldn't do that. Whereas bouldering is like, I love it. I just want to go and do it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of power in just really going with whatever is telling you at the moment. The routes aren't going anywhere, so you can come back to them. Maybe there's a friend thing in that if you are to do routes, you do need a trusted climbing partner, and that might be the thing that shifts it.
Yeah. And that might be partly why I've fallen out of love with it as well, because you don't have that committed partner all the time. It's different.
Yeah.
But I'm quite impressed from one rambling email.
Well, it's what the thing is, this what you've done really, so you put in a lot of detail there, and I think for anyone trying to figure out their climbing, the more you can set it out like that, I think sometimes you can really burrow in and think, is it this, is it that, maybe it's my psychological, I lose it at Llanymynech, but it is full on there. And if that isn't what you're connecting to, that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it is fine. I mean, we're here to have fun. That's the whole point. And maybe Llanymynech can still be used on top rope for technique and movement, which supports your bouldering.
Yeah, making use of what's nearby.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't have to be from a doing that route point of view, is you're there just for movement and flow and to get on rock.
When we're allowed again.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to have to move on because we haven't got time.
Thank you ever so much for your help, though. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's brilliant. So the other person is Marlies. Is she there? I can see.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Now you're really small at the top. How did you get? Amy came level with me. Doesn't matter. I can see you at the top there. So, oh, there you are. You've just appeared next to me. Brilliant. Oh well, thank you, Marlies. So, yeah, you mainly climb trad when you're in the UK. Do you live in the UK?
Yes, I currently live in the UK.
Oh, right. Okay. But sometimes you don't.
Well, I'm originally from Austria. So basically, I started climbing actually in Australia. That was the first time I started climbing. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. So your question was, so you're good at working through the grades indoors, that's working for you, but you're not managing to use the same system outside while trad climbing.
Yep.
So I'm interested, what is the system you've used to progress indoors so far? How have you gone about doing that?
Very simple, just practice and practice and practice, basically. But I believe because I started sport climbing first, I probably trust it more than the trad climbing, I guess. And yeah.
So you found the link between outdoor sport climbing and indoor routes?
Yeah.
Easier, right? So I think this is quite common, is we can come up with a system and it works, but it doesn't work in another form of climbing. And it's the same again, we might make a system work in our career or our job or something that allows us to progress, but we can't apply it back to climbing. So what is jumping out for me with you is the non-number goals. So you've made the link that sport climbing and indoor climbing, there are links there, but with trad, not so much. So what was happening is you were getting out last year and you were getting on E1s on top one second, no problem, but you didn't feel like you could lead them as comfortably, or have you led?
I could get on very low graded like grades of that, like the lower grade of that version. And then as soon as I tried a harder one or like followed one, I didn't feel like I would be able to like lead that, but like comfortably in these 4%, as you said.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, what if you were to sort of break? So what we did, like last time, we looked at technique, tactical, physical, psychological, but what we didn't look at was all the elements that come from the technical point of view, from a gear point of view. So if you were to ask yourselves questions on, do you feel comfortable placing wires, cams, slings all equally? You know, are you, you know, do you feel you absolutely 100% with all those, your gear there equally?
I'm quite happy placing gear. I think it's more of like placing gear in positions where I don't feel happy to place gear.
Okay.
But
so that's an interesting one, body positioning when clipping. So body positioning when placing gear, it's interesting because when we sport climb and we indoor route climb, we have to stop and clip, but it's not the same kind of thing because it's quicker. So with trad, we have to pick exactly the right place, or usually actually we pick the wrong place, place it, and realize we've wasted so much energy that, yeah, then our arms burn out. So it may be if you picked that, so that's one thing that's jumping out, body positioning when you're placing gear. Anything else?
Not really. I think it's more the like just getting on with it in the way of like just take the fall if it's there, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because on trad sometimes you can't fall off. It's not a good idea at all. So yeah, really. So I mean, so if we take those two things, one is that your goal can be to work on the body positioning. So maybe when you go back inside, you need to spend way longer at every clip.
Okay.
So it may, you could clip it, but if you get to a point and the clip is there, is you don't clip it immediately, you spend 30 seconds there figuring out the best point. Is this perfect for every single clip at the climbing wall? And that is your goal. And you do it on all different styles, and you make sure you do it on routes. I don't know what your local climbing wall, whether it's got corners, whether it's got features, and you search out those climbs and you search out those features. So your goal is about body positioning. I mean, I don't know if you would do it, but could you go to the climbing wall wearing your rack? I mean,
Possibly.
I know that some people would get, but do you know what? Who cares right now? I mean, you know, to get used to the weight, or just trying to think like, this is my goal.
Okay.
And take that, and if you were to take that and dissect that, all the things that would help that, would that work?
Would it work on a fairly easy trad route where I feel quite comfortable doing that as well?
Yeah, yeah, and you can also get your partner to be really honest with you and say, look, was that in the right body position there?
Yeah.
And get that feedback, and it becomes about that. So yeah, I've just looked at the time.
But
We've
thank
got
you
to
very much.
move on. But yeah, the non-number goals, the 4%, the small things. There's going to be so many 1% things for trad. There's so much more complexity to it.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
Right. Okay, so the last bit now. Ooh. So the last bit was talking about prioritizing. So for some of you, you've got your scores back and you were looking, okay, well, this is how much I got for technique. This is how much I got for physical, this for psychological. How do you prioritize? What do? You've got the information. So the first thing I would say is you need to play the long game. Now, if you look at somebody like, I mean, I have known Shauna Coxey since she was 14. So she's now somewhere in, well, probably Emma will know, but, you know, we're sort of well over 10 years since that point. And I went with her to Crange when she did a World Cup competition as a junior. So I've seen some of that. She can't work on everything at the same time. She can't. There's got to be priorities. And so it's this, but she's got 7 days a week to do this. We don't. So I think, don't feel like you need to be able to work on all this stuff now. It's impossible. So you've got to prioritize. Now, the second thing that I've put there is set your goal. Which way around do you work with this? Do you look at where you are and think, now this is where I am, so I'm going to set my goal from this? Or do you set your goal and then you figure out from that on your list of what you need to work on and match it up with your goal? So for example, if it came up that you were weak on dynamic movement, but your goal was what Marlies wants to do, E1s on trad, then it's not so important. She does not need to be doing double dynos on E1s. If you are, Marlies, I'm really worried. So you're trying to make it really specific to your goal. Now this is just something you could think about. Do something from technique, tactical, physical, psychological every 2 weeks. Now I thought about this. Do I put that in every week? Do you do something off each area every week, or do you do it every 2 weeks? Now the reason I've put technique in as number 1, that's my next point there. For me, that's the bottom line in climbing. Technique has to be the highest priority in anybody's climbing, because even if people are really strong on fingerboarding and front levers, when they go out climbing in a month, a front lever is, I'm going to Stanish tomorrow, I'm making a safety film for the BMC, and I'm going out with Steve McClure, and seriously, a front lever is not going to help you at Stanish tomorrow. So technique is probably the big thing that's going to come up for all of us when we get climbing again. So that's every week, but the psychological, you might, if that's a tricky thing for you, you might just want to tackle that every 2 weeks. It depends. So if something's really, really going to stress you out, you don't want to do it. If you're going to fall off every single week, that's going to become stressful. But it's maybe to just keep that consistency. You could choose to work a weakness each week, just maybe for half an hour each session. Each week you work a weakness. Organize your year. So this is the other thing. There's quite a lot here. What I mean by that is that, say you decide that your goal is something that you're best off doing in the autumn, and it can't be done in the summer. Maybe it's just too hot in the summer. Maybe you're going on a trip, and that's when your trip is in the autumn, is you will work on certain things closer to that period. And you will look at your work and your diary and what's going on. And so you'll just try and make sure you've got time. So your year might tell you what you can do when. And it might be, if you've got children in the school holidays in the summer, that means you're just going to get nothing done then. I don't know. Or it might mean you've got more time, in which case the autumn is going to be a tricky time. So you kind of need to figure that out. Now, the last point there is have fun. And this isn't like sticking to some big schedule that you've got to do. It's making sure that it's fun. So the last person that I wanted to speak to was Leela. Are you there, Leela?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi.
Hello.
You've not appeared next to me. Oh, you're there now. How are you doing?
Hiya, I'm good, thanks.
Thing.
You?
Great. Yeah.
It's a bit dull here. I can't get it a bit brighter in this room.
I've just got lights shining everywhere. Right, we're running out of time, aren't we? But you did a fantastic job, just like Amy. You wrote down everything. So you got it all there: psychological falling practice, decision making, headspace, and then technique, positioning on poor slopey footholds, varying hand grip, steeper walls, using rest, physical, recovering arms, climbing through a pump, tactics, visualizing. So you wrote that, but you also said it's like quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
When you look at it like that.
Yeah.
I know for you, because have you got 1 or 2 children?
2.
2. Yeah. So that's a big thing for you, is time, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think knowing your time and knowing your goal, what's come up for you so far with your goal in this session now? Has it made you think more clearly about your goal?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things was just listening to Amy earlier and connecting it back to what I miss about climbing. And really, it's being outside. And I think, I've only just really been getting into trad just before lockdown, a little bit on and off. But it's really hard to get out with kids just because the time commitment's so much longer. So it's so much easier for me to just go down to a wall when it's open, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think part of me has just felt a bit like, well, what's the point? Because it's kind of just too difficult, to get out as regularly as I would like. But that's changing. And it's going to change very soon. So yeah, but for me, I think the other thing that was coming up was around numbers and not numbers, and I realized that I'm actually not that interested in grades. I've kind of pushed up the grades indoor, so I've done that and that's been fun. But now what the thing that I missed was the sensation of rock under my feet and under my hands. So I just want to be out.
Yeah,
I just want to
so
be out,
maybe
really.
to have that clarity, and everything you do supports, well, one it's to have fun and climb when you can, but if the bigger thing is getting out, is what can you do at the wall that will make sure that when you get out, you can get the most out of it. So for me, the technique is probably your big thing that you can put time into there, because you can easily fit that in to your session indoors. But you know, you've got poor slopey footholds.
Yeah.
Searching those out, that is going to help you when you get outside. And also because you like doing roots, the varying the hand grip, so you can work on those things indoors. So yes, all the stuff about climbing through a forearm pump, you don't need to worry about that. That's not your limiting factor. You can just have that in the background for down the line, but it isn't your priority now for the routes that you want to do outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, like, it doesn't matter that you don't want to do grades at all. It's actually great to just think that isn't it. It is to, because I know you and Julie, that's it. You're a partnership trying to get out and get the routes in when you can.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really helpful actually, just to get to that point of thinking, right, that's what I want to be doing. And then to kind of carve out from that massive list, I just need to do this. It's like much more, feels much more doable. Yeah,
that's it. So be clear about what you want to do, and you can chop a load of it. Falling practice, don't worry about that right now. But things like decision making, self-trust, anything to do with the technique, yes. The visualizing, that would be nice too, but technique and the decision making and self-trust, I would say for you are the where to go right now.
Super.
Right. We're gonna have to come back to the group and
thank you so much, Katherine.
Well,
Cheers.
Thank you. And hopefully see you again soon. It's 25 to, so we've run over by 5 minutes. I don't know, Emma and Rebecca, how far you want to go with this, but I've got time for some questions. Are we going to do the hands up thing?
Yeah, that's fine, Katherine. I mean, obviously people can leave the room if they want to, that's no problem. The recording of the questions will be available afterwards anyway, but I'm sure there are a few questions. So if anyone wants to put their hand up, that would be great. Oh, let's see if there's any in the chat. No hands up. I found that super useful, and I really liked the playlist slide. I thought that's a really fun way of looking at setting your goals. And I was chatting to Rebecca in the background there because back in, I can't remember the year, but when we held the Women's Climbing Symposium in Sheffield, we had Sophie do a goal setting talk, and she talked about tick lists, and that really helped me. And I do something similar actually. I try to have a sort of list of problems that I've got around different crags in the peak. So like you say, when it's hot, you think, oh, I'll look at that crag, what was on my list for that crag, and see if that sort of gets me psyched. I love that idea of playlist. I think it's great.
Yeah, I know. So actually I did write down somewhere how Johnny Dawes, his way of doing it. So he was all about his Joni Mitchell playlist music thing. But the way he categorized his things, he said what he was going to do next, what he thought he might be able to do, and something that was possible but was currently impossible. And that's from a new routing perspective.
That's great. James has got a question actually. I think if you can unmute yourself, James, and ask your question, that'll be great.
Hi, Katherine.
Hi.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you had any advice. You can't see me?
Yes, got you.
Yay, there you
are.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you had any advice for people like me who I don't have any specific objectives in my climbing, and what I climb will very much depend on what me and my friends feel like doing at any particular time. So it could be bouldering, it might be sport, it could be trad. So how you maybe balance what you're doing throughout the years. So because I want to improve, but I guess what I need to improve at specifically is a bit unclear.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel that having a goal is really motivating. So again, we've said it doesn't have to be a numbers goal. It could be an adventure-based goal, or it could be a certain kind of day-out-based goal. What have you and your friends had a conversation and said as a group? Is there anything that, like, right, for example, what kind of climbing do you do?
So everything. We'll do everything, and
yeah,
I think we decide to do things maybe on a bit of a whim. Depends what the weather's like.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to improve, it is powerful to have something to aim for, because it directs what you can do with your time, as in the type of techniques you need to get better at, or maybe the psychological aspects because there's something really pleasant about milling about and doing whatever. But if you want to improve, I would say it's worth trying to get a goal. But what can be interesting is just saying, right, we normally come to the climbing wall and we climb. What if we put an hour aside at the end, and let's, is there something that there's three of you, did you say?
I climb with about a group of 6.
Right.
So good mixed group.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Before Christmas, it was back in September, my climbing partner and I, we've been doing a fair bit of milling about actually, but we wanted a goal that was going to keep us motivated. At that point, we were allowed to climb more, and the goal became 1 weekend a month we're going to go away somewhere. I mean, that seems really that goal clearly didn't happen. But we went, what was fascinating was the process we went through, because I was suggesting things and she was like, no. And then she was suggesting things and I was like, no. And then when we said, yes, that's it, a weekend away, it was quite powerful. And we did do 1 weekend away, and we went to a crag we'd not been to before. So yeah, it's having, I would say, it seems obvious, but have that conversation.
Yeah.
And see what comes up, because somebody might say something and you'll be like, that sounds really good. I'd have never thought of that.
Yeah, maybe we need to discuss maybe some group objectives between us. What we'd like to get out of the year. Yeah.
I think it's a conversation. It needs effort. It needs an actual pen, not necessarily a pen, but it needs discussion. Just as we're doing a session on it now. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, James. We've got another question from Stephanie for you, Katherine.
Hi, Stephanie. Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, there you are. Hi.
I don't know how to pin myself. Yeah, so it's like actually two little things. It's like this thing that always comes up is like climbing with kids. So I have 2 kids and I live in London. It's just the worst kind of combination to get outside. And I think for me, it's a good push, that kind of things mentioned, to actually organize, because I obviously have to organize myself. And the other thing is belay partners. So sometimes when I hear people talk, I say, can we not just swap numbers because you don't seem to have a partner, whatever. And so I really want to do an app for that. But anyway, but right now, because I can't climb and I don't know when I can go out, do you have any tips about, I wanted to, like, say, get a training plan from Neil Grisham, or is this thing about, I'm like also now around plus like 7A, but sometimes not and sometimes yes. It's like this training thing of how bold to be to actually go into serious, more kind of aligned training and stuff like that. It's a bit of a vague question, but
is that your question? So you're wondering whether to basically do a training plan or not?
Yes.
Okay. And
because it's mostly, the thing is, because I'm actually it's mostly indoors, really, realistically. So the challenge indoors is a little bit about grades in a way, because if you only do 6C and 6C plus, it gets really boring. Because then the odd thing about climbing is 6C plus is fine and 7A all of a sudden it's not. So the only thing I guess that helps is training.
So would the aim is to do the training plan so you could do higher grades at the climbing wall?
Yes, I guess.
And what's making you doubt whether to do it?
I guess sorry, this one is also just like, there's a little person already distracting me. I guess it's starting the process of what people, because I missed the other two sessions, is this kind of writing down what's important, right? And then I can crystallize out if it's just...
So the last two sessions, I put a load of questions together that people could score themselves on technique, tactics, physical, psychological. And then the idea was you could see in black and white, according to all those areas, where your weakness was. Now, so it's fine to come in with this. The thing is that it's very common for people to use training as their method to get to their goals. Now, you've got, training is obviously a huge thing in climbing, and it's a huge contributing factor, but the point was that there are the other elements of technique and the psychological, and how do you bring those in? So if you haven't done those questions, you won't necessarily have analysed your full performance to know if training is the thing. But we, in terms of motivation, is a huge reason that we climb, isn't it? And I would say is to do something that is going to keep you motivated. Are you motivated? What does the thought of a training plan do? Does it go, or are you just like, I don't know?
I guess it's a bit more what you said before. It's like I would love for you to do it with someone else. So if somebody just sends me a training plan, it's a bit, and they hang down on my fingerboards, and there's my kids wail in the background. It's probably not the right thing. It's just about getting somebody else on board.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be the training plan would work, but only if you did it with somebody.
Yeah.
And
that was a bit right.
And that's pretty powerful there, because there's been times when I'm completely self-motivated and other times where I need somebody else to do it with. And I know the busier your life, that being accountable thing is really powerful. So it could be your goal is actually to find a training partner, and then the training will just happen.
The funny thing is actually, because she's... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we've been doing that this lockdown with a couple of friends. We've just been doing a fingerboard set or a pull-up set off the Crimped app, and someone will just say, who wants to do it tonight at 7:30? And then they'll chuck a Zoom link in, and if you want to join, you can. And actually, it motivates you to just sort of do it. And that's not been anything sort of structured, but it's meant you've sort of done something. And every time I've done one with them, I've then climbed on the board the next day, or I've been more motivated to do a yoga session for a few days, and then it'll go back down, and then someone will throw something in, and you're like, yes, I'm motivated again. So yeah.
And I guess and I think it's great because I also got these WhatsApp messages like, oh, I miss climbing so much in my climbing group. So I can it's amazing. Like actually, just kind of tell them to do something. And actually, just if anybody has kids, mine are amazingly into pull-ups. They're 5 and 9, so you can actually do it with your kids. If I just kind of do a regular plan, they love getting stronger, and it's really cool to see them. And they do campus on the kind of bunk bed, and they're pretty strong. So someone probably at the moment I might just have to take that as my yes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
It sounds to me like having somebody to do it with is what's going to make the difference here, because you're just busy and you need to just get this slot and use that, and you need somebody else to help you with that motivation.
Thank you very much. It's very good.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. Right, I think that's all the questions. If thank you so much, Katherine. That was absolutely fantastic. The chat's been talking about all sorts, including knitting.
I've missed all of it. I haven't seen anything in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's come, and thank you everyone for contributing. Thanks for sending all of your questions to Katherine before this talk, and everyone who emailed in, because that's helped to inform Katherine's talk. So it's been massively helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Katherine. Thank you so much to everyone who's online. Thank you very much to Adidas and 510 once again for helping us get these going, and for everything they do to support us. And we'll see you at the next talk. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Bye.